My dad said, "You'll never make it without my help." So I sent him a wedding invitation after 5 years of silence. I was 22 when he cut me off completely. I'd just graduated with my marketing degree and announced I was moving to Portland to work for a startup instead of joining his accounting firm. His face went red. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life," he said, standing in the driveway as I loaded my beat-up Honda. "Without my connections, you're nobody. You'll come crawling back within 6 months." My mother stood behind him, silent as always. I didn't crawl back. The first year was brutal. My studio apartment had mice and a radiator that only worked on Tuesdays. I ate instant ramen and worked 70-hour weeks. The startup failed after 8 months. I moved to a competitor, then another. Each time I climbed a little higher. My younger brother would call sometimes, whispering updates about family dinners where dad predicted my imminent failure. "He keeps saying you'll realize you need him," my brother said, "that you're too proud to admit it." By year 3, I was a senior marketing director. By year 4, I'd been headhunted by a major tech company. The salary was more than dad made after 30 years of grinding at his firm. Then I met Theo at a conference in Denver. He was a software architect with kind eyes and a laugh that made my chest ache. We got engaged after a year. When he asked about my family, I told him the truth. All of it. "You should invite them," he said gently. "Not for him, for you." I drafted the invitation 3 times before finally addressing the envelope. Simple cream cardstock with our names in gold script. No note, no explanation, just the invitation to witness what I'd built without him. The response came 2 weeks later. Not from dad, but from my mother. Her handwriting was shaky. "Your father had a stroke last month. He's home now, but things are different. We'll be there." My hands trembled as I read it. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. Instead, I just felt hollow. The wedding was perfect. My brother walked me down the aisle. My mother sat in the second row, dabbing her eyes. But Dad's wheelchair was positioned in the back corner, and I could feel his eyes on me the entire ceremony. At the reception, my mother approached during the cocktail hour. "He's so proud of you," she whispered. "He just doesn't know how to say it." I wanted to believe her. But then I saw my brother arguing with Dad near the gift table. Their voices rose just loud enough for me to catch fragments. "Just tell her," my brother was saying. "Not now. She doesn't need to." Dad cut him off. My brother's face went pale as he noticed me watching. He grabbed my arm and pulled me into the coat check room. "There's something you need to know," he said, "about why Dad really wanted you to work for him." Before he could continue, my mother burst in, her face twisted with panic. "Don't," she begged my brother. "Please, not today." I looked between them, my wedding dress suddenly feeling too tight. "Someone needs to tell me what's going on, right now." My brother took a breath. "Dad didn't want you in the firm to help you. He needed you there to..." The door slammed open. Dad stood there, gripping his walker, his face contorted with effort and something darker. "That's enough," he said, his words slurred but clear enough. "She doesn't get to know. Not after what she did to this family." His eyes met mine, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. Not pride, not regret, fear. The coat check room went silent except for Dad's labored breathing. Behind him, Theo appeared in the doorway, his expression shifting from confusion to concern as he took in the scene. "What's going on?" Theo asked, moving to my side. Dad's grip tightened on his walker until his knuckles went white. For a moment, I thought he might collapse. Then Mom stepped forward and placed her hand on his arm. "We should go," she said quietly. "This isn't the time." "No." My voice came out stronger than I expected. "I've waited 5 years for answers. You're not leaving until someone tells me the truth." My brother looked at Dad, then at Mom, then back at me. "The firm was under investigation," he said quickly, before anyone could stop him. "The FBI had been looking into Dad's business practices for 2 years before you graduated. They wanted someone on the inside who didn't know what was happening. Someone clean." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "That's why he needed you," my brother continued, his voice cracking. "You were supposed to be his insurance policy. If you worked there, signed documents, attended meetings, you'd be implicated too. He thought if they came after him, having his daughter involved would make the case too messy. Might even give him leverage for a better deal." I stared at Dad. That's not true. But his face told me everything. The fear in his eyes wasn't about my success. It was about what I might discover now. "You were going to make me an accessory," I whispered. "To what? What did you do?" Mom's voice was barely audible. "Tax fraud, embezzlement, money laundering through shell companies. It started small, 20 years ago. Then it just kept growing." "The stroke," my brother added. "It wasn't random. It happened the day after the FBI served a warrant on the office. They seized everything. Computers, files, bank records." Theo's hand found mine and squeezed. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel anything except the weight of what I'd narrowly escaped. "When you refused to join the firm," Mom said, tears streaming down her face, "he panicked, started moving money faster, trying to cover tracks, made mistakes. The investigation accelerated. So you let me leave thinking I was a disappointment." My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "You let me believe I'd failed you, that I was throwing away some great opportunity. I was protecting you," Dad interrupted, his words garbled but fierce. "If you joined the firm, you'd be facing charges right now. I saved you by pushing you away." The audacity of it stole my breath. "You tried to use me as a shield. When that didn't work, you're claiming you saved me?" "The prosecutors are building a case," my brother said. "They've offered deals if he cooperates. But if he goes to trial, they want to call you as a witness." Mom finished. "They know he tried to recruit you. They think you might have known something, heard something over the years. That's why they came to the wedding. Not for reconciliation, not for pride. They needed to see what I knew, what I might say." "How long have you known?" I asked my brother. 6 months. They approached me too, asked about conversations I'd overheard, about whether you ever seemed suspicious of Dad's work." He looked miserable. "I told them you didn't know anything, that you'd been cut off completely. And you didn't think to warn me?" "I tried. Every time we talked, I tried to tell you without actually saying it, but Mom begged me not to burden you with it. Said you deserved to be happy. I looked at my mother, really looked at her. The expensive dress that probably cost more than my first car, the diamond bracelet that sparkled under the reception lights. All of it bought with stolen money. Did you know? I asked her. The whole time? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Get out, I said. All of you. Get out of my wedding. Sweetheart. Mom reached for me. Don't. I stepped back. You stood by while he tried to destroy my future to save himself. You let me spend 5 years thinking I disappointed you. And you came here today not to celebrate with me, but to assess damage control. It's more complicated than that, Dad managed. Is it? Because it seems pretty simple to me. You're a criminal. You tried to make me one too. When I accidentally saved myself by leaving, you convinced everyone I was the villain. Theo's arm wrapped around my waist, holding me steady. I think you should leave now, he said to my parents. His voice was calm, but absolute. Dad's face twisted. You don't understand what it's like, building something for decades, watching it all fall apart because of a few mistakes. A few mistakes? My voice rose. You stole money. You laundered it. You were willing to sacrifice your own daughter to avoid consequences. Those aren't mistakes. That's who you are. I gave you everything, Dad said. This degree you're so proud of, I paid for it. The car you drove to Portland? Mine. Even now, you're standing here judging me with the privilege I provided. You're right. I cut him off. You gave me a good childhood, a good education, and I'm grateful for that. But the second I became useful as something other than a daughter, the second you needed a pawn, you were willing to destroy me. That cancels out the rest. My brother was crying now, silent tears running down his face as he watched our family implode. What about you? I asked him. Did he try to trap you too? He offered me a job last year, my brother admitted. Right after they contacted me. I think he was trying again, finding a replacement shield now that you were gone. Did you take it? No, I'm working at a nonprofit, making $40,000 a year. He laughed bitterly. Dad keeps calling it charity work, says I'm wasting my potential. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so devastating. Mom took one last shot. We're still your parents. That has to mean something. It does, I said. It means I'll grieve what we could have been, but I won't let you weaponize love to excuse what you did. Security appeared in the doorway. Theo must have signaled them. 2 men in dark suits waited patiently for instruction. Please escort these guests out, Theo said. They're leaving. Dad looked like he wanted to argue, but the fight drained out of him. He was just an old man in a wheelchair, facing the consequences of his choices. Mom helped him turn toward the exit. At the door, my brother paused. I'm sorry, he said, for not telling you sooner, for not protecting you better. You tried to tell me tonight. That's more than they did. He nodded and followed our parents out. The coat check room fell quiet. Through the closed door, I could hear music from the reception, my wedding, my perfect day that now felt irreversibly tainted. I want to get out of this dress, I said. I want to leave. Okay, Theo said immediately. What do you need? I need to not be here. I need to not think about this. My voice cracked. I need to marry you without them in my head. He pulled me close. Then let's go. Right now. Leave this whole thing behind. We can't just abandon our own wedding. Watch us. He was already pulling out his phone. I'm texting my brother. He can make announcements, handle guests. We're going. Where? I don't care. Anywhere but here. 20 minutes later, we were in Theo's car, still in our wedding clothes. I'd grabbed my phone and nothing else. He drove without destination, just putting miles between us and the reception venue. We ended up at a 24-hour diner 40 minutes outside the city. The waitress didn't even blink at my white dress or his tuxedo. She just brought us coffee and waited while I stared at the menu without reading it. Pancakes, Theo told her. We'll both have pancakes. After she left, he reached across the table and took my hands. You okay? I don't know what I am. That's fair. My whole childhood was a lie, I said. Every time he praised my grades, every father-daughter dance, every proud moment, he was just grooming me, making sure I'd be loyal enough, devoted enough, to walk into his trap without questioning it. Maybe, Theo said carefully. Or maybe he loved you and was also a criminal. People can be multiple things at once. Don't make excuses for him. I'm not. I'm just saying you get to decide what to keep and what to throw away. You don't have to burn down every memory to protect yourself. The pancakes arrived. I pushed mine around the plate while Theo ate his methodically, giving me space to think. They're going to call me, I said eventually. The prosecutors, if they want me to testify, probably. What should I tell them? The truth, whatever that is. I thought about all the dinners where Dad complained about regulations, about government overreach, how he'd rant about taxes being theft. I'd tuned it out. Typical teenage rebellion against parental lectures. Now I wondered what I'd missed. I don't think I know anything useful, I admitted. I was deliberately oblivious. Didn't want to follow in his footsteps, so I didn't pay attention to what those footsteps looked like. Then you tell them that. My brother will have to testify too. He heard things. Theo nodded. This is going to get messy. Media attention, probably. Your dad's firm wasn't small. I hadn't even thought about that. The idea of seeing my father's face on the news, reading articles about the scandal, watching strangers dissect my family's dysfunction, it made the pancakes curdle in my stomach. I changed my name, I said suddenly, when we got married. I wasn't going to originally, but then at the last minute I decided to take yours. I told myself it was romantic, but maybe you were already trying to distance yourself, Theo finished, even before you knew why. Is that cowardly? It's survival. My phone buzzed. My brother's name appeared on the screen. I declined the call. It buzzed again immediately. This time a text. Please talk to me. I need to know you're okay. I typed back, I need time. His response came fast. The FBI wants to talk to you. They were waiting outside the venue. I told them you left. My hands went cold. They're already moving. Theo read the message over my shoulder. They probably wanted to catch you with your guard down, while emotions were high. Another text. Agent named Carmichael. Gave me his card. Said to tell you this is just preliminary questions. You're not in trouble. Yet, I muttered. Theo pushed his plate aside. We need a lawyer. Before you talk to anyone. With what money? We just spent everything we had on that wedding. My sister's husband is a defense attorney. He'll help us figure this out. I wanted to argue, but exhaustion was creeping in. The adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation was fading, leaving behind bone-deep weariness. Can we just sit here for a while? I asked. Pretend we're normal people having normal pancakes after their normal wedding? As long as you want. We sat in that diner until dawn. The waitress refilled our coffee 6 times and never asked why. When the sun started rising, painting the parking lot in shades of pink and gold, Theo paid the bill and we walked back to the car. So, he said, opening my door, how does it feel to be married? Despite everything, I laughed. Not quite how I imagined. Me neither. He kissed my forehead. But I'd do it again. All of it. Even the terrible parts. We haven't even had our honeymoon yet, and we're already dealing with family drama and federal investigations. Good practice for the rest of our lives. He drove us to his apartment. Our apartment now, I supposed. We'd been planning to move into a new place after the honeymoon, but that could wait. Everything could wait. I fell asleep in my wedding dress, curled up on the couch while Theo made phone calls in the next room. His voice was a low murmur, talking to his brother-in-law about lawyers and subpoenas and things I wasn't ready to process. When I woke up, it was late afternoon. Theo had draped a blanket over me and left a note on the coffee table. Went to get your things from the venue. Back soon. Love you. My phone was full of messages. My brother had texted 17 more times. Mom had called 6 times and left one voicemail I wasn't ready to listen to. There were also messages from college friends who'd been at the wedding, all variations of, "Are you okay?" and "What happened?" The top message was from an unknown number. "This is Agent Carmichael, FBI. I'd like to speak with you at your earliest convenience regarding your father's case. Please call this number to arrange a meeting. My wedding day." The FBI was contacting me on my wedding day. I deleted the message. Then I opened a new browser window and searched my father's name. The results loaded slowly, each one a fresh punch to the gut. Local accountant under federal investigation for fraud. 20-year scheme uncovered. How one firm stole millions. Clients left devastated as CPA's house of cards collapses. The articles were from 3 months ago. While I'd been trying on wedding dresses and finalizing seating charts, reporters had been writing about my father's crimes. I clicked on the most recent article. It was from 2 weeks ago, right around when Mom had sent the wedding RSVP. Sources close to the investigation say prosecutors are building an extensive case against Donald Fletcher, 58, whose accounting firm served over 200 small businesses in the tri-state area. Fletcher allegedly diverted client funds into personal accounts, created false expense reports, and laundered money through a network of shell companies. Former employees describe a culture of intimidation and secrecy. He ran that place like a fortress. One anonymous source said, "Nobody questioned the boss. If you tried, you were gone." Fletcher's health has reportedly declined since the investigation became public. He suffered a stroke last month and is currently being treated at home while awaiting formal charges. His attorney declined to comment. Investigators are particularly interested in Fletcher's family members, some of whom worked at the firm. His son briefly interned there during college, and Fletcher allegedly attempted to recruit his daughter to join the business before she moved out of state. It's unclear if family members had knowledge of the fraudulent activities. The article included a photo of Dad from 5 years ago, before the stroke. He looked powerful in that picture, confident. The kind of man who could convince you to trust him with everything. I wondered how many people had. The front door opened. Theo came in carrying 3 suitcases and 2 boxes. "Your college friend Priya helped me pack," he said. "She's very organized. Also very concerned about you. People are talking." "Yeah." He set down the luggage. "Your wedding exit is going viral on some Reddit forum. Someone posted asking if anyone knew what happened. Last I checked, the thread had 3,000 comments. Oh God. Most people are supportive. They're speculating about family drama, toxic parents. A few have connected it to your dad's case." He sat down beside me. "We can disappear for a while if you want. Take that honeymoon. Get out of town until this blows over." Does it blow over? This kind of thing? Eventually. Something else becomes the scandal. But probably not for a few months. I showed him Agent Carmichael's message. He read it twice, his jaw tightening. "My brother-in-law says don't talk to them without representation. They're going to try the friendly approach first. Act like you're just helping them understand context. But anything you say can be used. I don't have anything to hide. You also don't know what they think you know. Better to have a lawyer filter that." He was right. I knew he was right. But the idea of needing a lawyer, of being involved in something that required legal protection, made everything feel more real, more serious. "When can I meet with your brother-in-law?" "Tomorrow morning if you want. His name is Wesley. He's expensive, but he'll work with us on payment. Everything we saved is gone. The wedding maxed us out. We'll figure it out." Theo pulled me against his chest. "This isn't your debt anyway. This is your father's mess. We're just trying not to get buried in the fallout." That night, I finally listened to Mom's voicemail. Her voice was thin, fragile. "Sweetheart, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please, when the FBI contacts you, and they will, please remember that your father isn't a monster. He made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but he loves you. He's always loved you. Don't let anger make you say things you'll regret. Call me when you're ready to talk." I deleted it. Then I called my brother. He answered on the first ring. "Are you okay?" "No, but I need to know everything. Every detail you know about what Dad did, and when you found out." He was quiet for a moment. "Are you sure? There's a lot, and none of it's good. I'm sure." He talked for 40 minutes. I sat on the floor of my new apartment, still in my wedding dress, and learned exactly who my father was. It started small. A client overpaid by $500 and Dad just kept it. Nobody noticed. So he did it again. Then he started adjusting expense reports, skimming a little here and there. Small amounts that wouldn't trigger audits. Then he got bolder, created fake vendor accounts, billed clients for services never rendered, moved money through increasingly complex schemes. He told himself he'd stop, my brother said, that it was temporary, just until the firm was more profitable. But it never stopped. It just grew. How much? They think around $4 million, maybe more. They're still tracing everything. $4 million, stolen from people who'd trusted him to handle their finances, small business owners, families, people who probably couldn't afford the loss. There's something else, my brother said. Something I only found out last week. I waited. The money he used for your college tuition. Some of it came from a client's retirement fund. An older woman who ran a bakery. She'd been saving for 30 years to retire. Dad took it all. She had to sell her business and go back to work at 73. I felt sick. Her name is Geneva Ortiz, my brother continued. She lives in Riverton. I looked her up after I found out. Wanted to know who she was. There's a profile about her in the local paper from last year, before any of this came out. She talked about how she'd finally be able to rest, how she'd worked so hard for so long. Stop, I managed. Please stop. You need to know. You need to know what we're dealing with. I hung up and ran to the bathroom. Theo found me on the floor 20 minutes later, still in my wedding dress, crying so hard I couldn't breathe. He didn't say anything, just sat down beside me and held me until the sobs turned to hiccups and eventually to silence. My college education was bought with a stolen retirement fund. I whispered. That's not on you, isn't it? I benefited from his crimes. I profited from that woman's loss. You didn't know. Does that matter? He thought about it. Legally, yes. Morally, I don't know. But I know you're not responsible for his choices. I wanted to believe him. But sitting there on the cold bathroom tile, wearing a dress we'd bought with money from jobs I got with a degree paid for by theft, I felt complicit. Stain. I need to find her, I said. Geneva Ortiz. I need to talk to her. That's not a good idea. I have to try to explain. Explain what? That you're sorry your father stole her retirement? That won't give her back 30 years of savings. It'll just make her pain worse by putting a face to it. Then what am I supposed to do? Testify. Help them build the strongest case possible. Make sure he faces real consequences. He's my father. He's also a criminal who hurt people. Those things can both be true. I pulled off my veil. The delicate lace was crushed now, makeup stained and wrinkled. It felt appropriate. This whole day had been crushed under the weight of truth. I need to get out of this dress, I said. Theo helped me stand. The zipper was stuck, so he used scissors to cut it away. We let the dress fall to the floor in a puddle of white silk and broken dreams. I stood in my underwear, looking at our reflection in the mirror. Theo in his tuxedo shirt, untucked and wrinkled. Me in my slip, mascara streaked down my face. This is not how wedding nights are supposed to go, I said. Probably not, but we're together. That's what matters. I turned to face him. I'm going to be a mess for a while. This is going to be ugly and complicated, and I don't know how to handle any of it. Good thing I'm not going anywhere. You could say this is too much, too messy. I'd understand. He cupped my face in his hands. Listen to me. I married you today. Not your father. Not your family drama. You. And I meant every word of those vows. For better or worse. Richer or poorer. FBI investigations and all. I kissed him. It was desperate and salty with tears, but it was real. Maybe the only real thing that had happened all day. We ended up ordering pizza and eating it on the bedroom floor while a movie played on the laptop neither of us watched. At some point, I fell asleep with my head on Theo's shoulder. I woke up to sunlight and the sound of Theo talking on the phone in the next room. Yes, she'll be there. 10 o'clock. Your office. We'll see you then. He came back looking apologetic. Wesley can meet us this morning. I know it's early, but it's fine. Let's just get it over with. Wesley's office was downtown in a building with marble floors and expensive artwork. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. First thing you need to know, he said after we'd settled in his conference room, is that you are not under investigation. You are not accused of anything. Right now, you're a potential witness. The FBI wants to know if you have information that could help their case. I don't think I do. Probably not, but they need to establish that for the record. They'll ask about your childhood, your relationship with your father, whether you ever observed anything suspicious about his work. What if I refuse to talk to them? They can subpoena you, force you to testify before a grand jury. It's better to cooperate voluntarily, show good faith, but we do it on our terms. I'll be present for any interview. We'll set clear boundaries about what's relevant. My brother said they talked to him too. Yes, I spoke with his attorney this morning. He's cooperating. Told them about conversations he overheard, documents he saw. Nothing that implicates him, just information about your father's activities. Will he have to testify at trial? If it goes to trial, yes. But most federal cases don't. The conviction rate is over 90%. Your father's attorney will almost certainly recommend a plea deal. How long would he go to prison? Wesley leaned back in his chair. With charges this serious? Asset forfeiture, multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement? He's looking at 15 to 20 years. With a plea, maybe he could get it down to 10. 10 years minimum. Dad would be 68 when he got out, if he got out. The stroke had done serious damage. Another decade in prison might be a life sentence. I tried to feel something about that. Sadness, satisfaction, anything. But I just felt numb. What about my mother? I asked. She knew. She admitted she knew. That's complicated. Unless she actively participated in the crimes, signed documents, moved money, made false statements, it's hard to charge her with anything. Spouses aren't required to report their partner's crimes. So she gets away with it. She loses everything. Her home, her lifestyle, probably her reputation. That's not nothing. But it wasn't justice either. Wesley pulled out a legal pad. Let's talk about what you might be asked. Start from the beginning. When did you first become aware of your father's work? I spent 2 hours answering questions. What did Dad say about his clients? Did he ever bring work home? Were there late-night phone calls? Did he seem stressed about money? Did he ever ask me to sign anything? The answer to almost everything was no. I'd been deliberately disinterested in his career. The more he pushed me toward accounting, the more I'd retreated into marketing and creative work. That actually helps your credibility, Wesley said. You're not hiding anything. You genuinely didn't know because you weren't paying attention. Should I feel guilty about that? Not paying attention? You were a kid, then a college student, then an adult with your own life. It wasn't your job to audit your father. But maybe if I had paid attention, someone could have stopped him sooner. People like Geneva Ortiz might still have their savings. Wesley seemed to read my mind. Don't do that to yourself. Your father is a sophisticated financial criminal. He fooled professional accountants, bank auditors, even the IRS for years. You never had a chance of spotting what he was doing. After the meeting, Theo and I sat in the car for a long time. Agent Carmichael wants to meet tomorrow, I said, reading Wesley's follow-up text. 2 p.m., Wesley will be there. You don't have to do this if you're not ready. I'll never be ready. Might as well get it over with. We drove to a park and walked along the trail. It was a Tuesday afternoon, so the place was mostly empty except for a few joggers and a woman with a stroller. I keep thinking about that woman, I said. Geneva Ortiz. My brother sent me the article about her. She looks like someone's grandmother, smiling in front of her bakery, proud of what she'd built. You can't fix what he broke. I could try. I could reach out to her. Tell her I didn't know. Offer to help. With what money? And what would that actually accomplish except making you feel less guilty and her feel worse? I knew he was right, but the guilt sat in my chest like a stone. The trial is going to make everything public, I said. People will find out I'm his daughter. They'll find out about you. Our life. Someone will probably dig up our wedding drama and connect all the dots. Let them. We're not hiding. Your job is fine. I already talked to my boss. Explained the situation. They're supportive. For now, wait until my face is on the news. Theo stopped walking and turned to face me. Listen to me. I don't care. I don't care if people talk or stare or think we're connected to his crimes. I know the truth. You know the truth. That's what matters. You're being too nice about this. You should be angry. You should be questioning whether you made a mistake marrying me. I'm not angry at you. I'm angry at your father for what he did and how he tried to use you. But you're the victim here too. You and everyone he stole from. I wanted to believe him, but it was hard to see myself as a victim when I'd benefited so much from stolen money, even unknowingly. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed scrolling through my phone, reading more articles about the case. Each one revealed new details, more victims, more sophisticated schemes, more evidence of just how extensive the fraud had been. One article mentioned Dad's stroke specifically. Associates say Fletcher appeared visibly shaken after the FBI raid on his office. He was hospitalized with stroke symptoms within 24 hours. Some speculate the stress of the investigation triggered the medical emergency, so the stroke was real, not a ploy for sympathy. He'd literally been brought low by the consequences of his own actions. Another article interviewed a victim. Bradley Chen ran a family restaurant for 40 years. When he tried to retire and access his accounts, he discovered his CPA had embezzled nearly everything. I trusted him completely, Chen said. He was at my daughter's wedding. I thought we were friends. I wondered if Dad had attended Geneva Ortiz's parties too. If he'd eaten cake bought with money, he planned to steal. Around 3 a.m, I gave up on sleep and went to the kitchen. Theo found me there an hour later, sitting at the table with a laptop and 17 browser tabs open. What are you doing? Research. I'm trying to understand the full scope. How many people? How much money? What the actual impact was? That's not healthy. Maybe not, but I need to know. I showed him a spreadsheet I'd started. I'm cataloging the victims from news reports. Names, businesses, amounts stolen when reported. I'm up to 32 confirmed cases. Why? Because somebody should acknowledge them. Somebody should know their names. Theo pulled up a chair beside me. Show me. We spent the rest of the night reading victim statements together. Each one was heartbreaking in its own way. A woman who couldn't afford her daughter's medical treatment after Dad emptied her health savings account. A man whose business went bankrupt because he thought he had operating capital that didn't exist. A couple whose divorce was triggered by financial stress from the theft. By dawn, we had documented 47 victims, and we still hadn't finished reading. I want to do something, I said. Something real to help them, not just testify. Like what? I don't know yet, but there has to be something. The meeting with Agent Carmichael was in a federal building downtown. We had to go through security, empty our pockets, surrender our phones. Wesley met us in the lobby. Remember, he said as we waited for the elevator, answer only what's asked. Don't volunteer information. If you don't remember something, say so. If you're not sure, say so. And if anything makes you uncomfortable, we stop. Agent Carmichael was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with a no-nonsense expression and firm handshake. Her partner, Agent Torres, was older and quieter. Thank you for coming in, Carmichael said as we settled in the interview room. I know this is difficult. Let's just get started, Wesley said. They asked basic questions first. My education, my career, when I last lived at home, when I last had substantial contact with my father. Then they moved to specifics. Did your father ever discuss his clients with you? Not really. He'd mention work was busy or complain about regulations, but nothing specific. Did he ever ask you to review documents or sign anything related to his business? No. He wanted me to work for him, but I never did. Tell us about that. Why did he want you to join the firm? I looked at Wesley. He nodded. He said it was about family legacy, that he'd built something I should be part of. But at my wedding, my brother revealed the real reason. Dad wanted me there to implicate me, make me part of whatever he was doing so I'd be too involved to expose him. Carmichael's expression didn't change, but she made a note. What was your reaction to learning that? I asked them all to leave my wedding. Did your father ever give you large gifts? Money? Assets? He paid for my college, but that was before I knew it was stolen money. We're not suggesting you knew, Torres interjected. We're just establishing the flow of funds. Did he give you anything else? A car? Down payment on a house? A car when I turned 16. Nothing after I left home 5 years ago. No contact at all? Occasionally my mother would try to call. My brother and I talked sometimes, but Dad and I were estranged. By your choice? Or his? Both. I left. He cut me off financially and emotionally. The questions continued for over an hour. They asked about family dinners, conversations I might have overheard, whether I'd ever been to his office, if I knew any of his clients. The answer was almost always no. I'd been so focused on escaping his expectations that I'd never looked closely at what those expectations were built on. Finally, Wesley said, I think that's sufficient for today. My client has been cooperative. If you have follow-up questions, you can contact me. Carmichael nodded. One last thing. We may need you to testify before the grand jury. Are you willing to do that? Yes, I said. Whatever you need. And if this goes to trial? Same answer. She smiled for the first time. Thank you. I know this isn't easy. For what it's worth, your father's crimes were extensive and sophisticated. There's nothing you could have done to stop them. It should have made me feel better. It didn't. Outside, Wesley walked us to our car. That went well. You were clear, consistent, credible. They're satisfied you weren't involved. What happens now? They continue building their case. Your father's attorney is negotiating a plea deal. If he accepts, there's no trial. You might not have to testify at all. And if he doesn't accept, then it goes to trial in about 6 months. You'd be called as a witness to establish his family relationships and contradict any claims that you knew about or approved of his business practices. 6 months of waiting, 6 months of this hanging over us. That weekend, my brother came to visit. He looked exhausted, older than his 27 years. Mom's a mess, he said. She's staying with Aunt Claire. Can't afford the house anymore. Everything's being seized. That's not my problem. I know. I'm just telling you what's happening. We sat in uncomfortable silence. 5 years ago, we'd been close. Now we felt like strangers connected only by shared trauma. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, he said again. I was trying to protect you. By lying? By not burdening you with information you couldn't use. What would you have done differently if you'd known a year ago? 6 months ago? He was right. I couldn't have stopped the investigation. I couldn't have returned stolen money I didn't have. All I could have done was worry. How bad is it for you? I asked. Are they questioning you too? Yeah, but I'm cooperating. Told them everything I know. My lawyer says I'm clear. He hesitated. Dad wants to see you. No. He's asking. Says he needs to explain. No. I stood up. He doesn't get to explain. He doesn't get closure or forgiveness or whatever he's looking for. He's still our father. He's a criminal who tried to destroy my future to save himself. That's not a father. That's a predator. My brother flinched. I know. I'm stuck in the middle here. Mom keeps asking me to convince you to visit. Dad keeps saying if you just let him explain, then you tell them I said no. Tell them I'm cooperating with the FBI. Tell them I'm cataloging every victim I can find so I understand the full scope of what he did. And tell them I hope he gets the maximum sentence. You don't mean that. Don't tell me what I mean. He left shortly after. As Theo and I watched him drive away, I felt a wave of loss. My family had imploded. My father was going to prison. My mother had enabled it all. And my brother was caught in the middle, trying to maintain relationships that couldn't be salvaged. We could go, Theo said quietly. Take that honeymoon. Get away from all this. Where would we even go? I don't care. Beach, mountains, different country, somewhere you don't have to think about any of this for a while. It was tempting, but running away felt like giving up. And I wasn't ready to give up. I want to meet her, I said. Geneva Ortiz. I know you think it's a bad idea, but I need to do it. Why? Because she's real. She's not just a name in an article or a line in a spreadsheet. She's a person whose life was destroyed, and the least I can do is acknowledge that. Theo sighed. Okay, but I'm coming with you. I found Geneva Ortiz through property records. She was renting a small apartment on the other side of town. I wrote her a letter first, explaining who I was and asking if she'd be willing to meet. I included my phone number and waited. She called 3 days later. Why do you want to see me? Her voice was accented, suspicious. To apologize, and to hear your story, if you're willing to share it. Your father stole from me. An apology doesn't fix that. I know, but I need to try. She was quiet for a long moment. Saturday, 2 o'clock. There's a coffee shop on Maple Street. She hung up before I could thank her. Saturday came too quickly. Theo and I arrived early and sat at a corner table. I'd rehearsed what to say 100 times, but every version sounded hollow. Geneva Ortiz walked in exactly at 2. She was smaller than I expected. Maybe 5 feet tall, with steel gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her face was lined with years of hard work, but her eyes were sharp. She sat down without ordering anything. You look like him, she said. Same nose, same chin. I'm sorry. For your face? Can't help genetics. For what he did, for what he took from you. She studied me for a long moment. You didn't know. I've read the articles. You haven't seen him in years. That doesn't make it better. He used money he stole from you to pay for my education. I benefited from his crimes. You were a child. You didn't choose that. But I lived well because of it. I never had to worry about money because he had plenty. Plenty of your money. Geneva's expression softened slightly. You want forgiveness? No, I don't think I deserve that. I just wanted you to know that I know, that you're not just a case number to me. She laughed, sharp and bitter. I worked 60 years. Started when I was 13 in my mother's kitchen. Saved every penny I could. Dreamed of the day I could rest, travel, spend time with my grandchildren. Your father took that dream and turned it into ashes. I know. You don't. You can't. You're young. You have your whole life ahead. But me? I'm 74 years old. I'm working retail now, standing on bad knees for minimum wage because I can't afford to stop. I will die working because of what your father did. The words hit like physical blows. I'd known intellectually what Dad had stolen, but hearing it from her, seeing the exhaustion in her face, made it visceral. I have some money, I said. Not much, but I'm working and I can pay you back over time. A little at a time, but I don't want your money. Please, let me do something. You want to do something? Geneva leaned forward. Testify. Tell the truth. Make sure he faces every consequence of what he did. Don't let lawyers or sympathy or family loyalty soften the blow. He stole my future. Make sure he loses his. I will, I promise. She stood to leave, then paused. You seem like a good person. That's something at least. That his badness didn't make it into you. I watched her walk out, straight-backed, despite everything, and felt something shift inside me. The guilt was still there, but alongside it was something else. Determination. I'm going to testify, I told Theo. If he takes a plea deal, fine. But if this goes to trial, I'm going to tell them everything. What he tried to do to me, how he tried to use me, all of it. Okay, Theo said. Then that's what we'll do. That night, I wrote out everything I remembered about Dad's attempts to recruit me. Every conversation, every guilt trip, every manipulation. I documented the timeline of when I refused, when he cut me off, when he ramped up his crimes. Wesley reviewed my statement and nodded. This is good, clear, damning. If he goes to trial, this will be powerful testimony. 2 weeks later, the plea deal fell through. Dad's lawyer had been negotiating for 8 years. The prosecution wanted 15 minimum. Dad refused. He wanted a trial. He thinks he can win, Wesley explained, or at least muddy the waters enough to get sympathy. Rich old man, health problems, devoted family, classic defense strategy. He doesn't have a devoted family anymore. Exactly. Which is why your testimony will be so important. You undermine his entire defense. The trial was scheduled for 6 months out. In the meantime, I focused on building my life. Theo and I settled into our apartment. I got promoted at work. We adopted a cat named Justice, which Theo thought was on the nose, but I found fitting. Mom continued trying to contact me. I ignored her calls. My brother kept me updated on her situation. She'd moved in with Aunt Claire permanently, lost most of her friends, couldn't find work because everyone knew who she was married to. She wants to know if you'll come to the trial, my brother said. Support Dad. I'll be there, but not supporting him. You're testifying against him? I'm testifying to the truth. If that's against him, that's his fault. Mom's going to be heartbroken. She should have thought of that before she spent 20 years enabling a criminal. My brother sighed. Fair enough. As the trial date approached, the media attention intensified. My wedding drama resurfaced. Someone connected the dots. Headlines appeared, fraud suspect's daughter kicked him out of her wedding, and family feud. Why Donald Fletcher's daughter is testifying against him. My boss called me in. I need to know if this is going to affect your work. It won't. I'm dealing with it outside of office hours. Good, because you're doing great work and I'd hate to lose you. But if this becomes a distraction, it won't be. I promise. I worked harder than ever, partly to prove myself, partly to avoid thinking about what was coming. The nights were worse. I'd lie awake imagining the trial, Dad in a wheelchair, Mom crying in the gallery, reporters scribbling notes while I testified against my own father. Wesley prepared me extensively. Mock cross-examinations. Aggressive questions designed to rattle me. Attempts to paint me as a bitter, estranged daughter seeking revenge. Stay calm, he coached. Answer honestly. Don't let them provoke you. The facts are on your side. The prosecution also prepped me. They walked me through what they'd ask, how they'd establish my credibility. They showed me documents. Emails Dad had sent to business partners mentioning his plan to bring me into the firm, make me an integral part of operations. These show intent, the prosecutor explained. He wasn't offering you a job. He was building a defense. Seeing it in writing made it worse somehow. Proof that it hadn't been my imagination or my brother's speculation. Dad had literally plotted to use me as cover. The night before the trial started, I couldn't sleep. Theo held me while I cried angry, frustrated tears. I shouldn't have to do this, I said. I shouldn't have to publicly testify against my own father. This is wrong. You're right. It is wrong. But you're doing it anyway because it's necessary. What if he sees me and has another stroke? What if? Then that's on him. His health problems are not your responsibility. His consequences are not your burden. The courthouse was a zoo. Cameras everywhere. Reporters shouting questions. Wesley and Theo flanked me as we pushed through to the entrance. Inside, the courtroom was packed. I spotted Mom in the front row behind Dad's table, looking small and fragile. My brother sat beside her, his expression carefully neutral. On the prosecution side, I saw some of the victims. Geneva Ortiz was there. So was Bradley Chen from the restaurant article. Others I didn't recognize but could identify by the expressions on their faces. Anger, hope, exhaustion. Dad was wheeled in by his attorney. He'd aged dramatically. The stroke had left him partially paralyzed, his face sagging on one side. But his eyes were alert. When they found mine across the courtroom, I didn't look away. I wasn't testifying the first day. That was devoted to jury selection and opening statements. But I sat in the gallery and listened. The prosecution laid out a clear narrative. Sophisticated, long-term fraud. Deliberate theft from vulnerable clients. Elaborate schemes to hide the stolen money. A man who'd spent decades building trust specifically so he could betray it. Dad's attorney painted a different picture. A hardworking man who'd made some accounting errors, mistakes that snowballed. No criminal intent. Health problems. A devoted family man now facing years in prison for what were essentially administrative oversights. It was absurd, but the defense attorney sold it well. On the third day, they called me to testify. I walked to the witness stand on legs that felt made of water, placed my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, sat down and faced the courtroom. The prosecutor started with easy questions. My name, my education, my career. Then she moved into my relationship with Dad. Would you describe your father as supportive of your career choices? No. He wanted me to join his accounting firm. When I chose a different path, he cut me off completely. Did he ever explain why he wanted you to join the firm? He said it was about family legacy, building something together. Did you believe that? At the time, yes. Do you still believe it? No. Why not? I looked directly at Dad. At my wedding, my brother revealed that my father had been under FBI investigation for 2 years before I graduated college, that he'd wanted me to join the firm not as a daughter, but as insurance. If I was involved, worked there, signed documents, I'd be implicated too. He thought that would either protect him or give him leverage for a better plea deal. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. The judge called for order. How did you feel learning this? Betrayed. Used. Relieved that I'd accidentally saved myself by refusing to join the firm. The prosecutor entered into evidence the emails Dad had sent mentioning his recruitment efforts, walked me through the timeline, established that his attempts to bring me into the firm had intensified exactly when the FBI investigation began. Did you ever suspect your father was committing crimes? No. I avoided learning about his work specifically because I wasn't interested in accounting. I deliberately didn't pay attention. If you had joined the firm as he wanted, what do you think would have happened? Objection. Dad's attorney shouted. Speculation. Sustained. The judge said. The prosecutor adjusted. Did your father ever express to you what role you would have played at the firm? He said I'd handle client relations, meet with people, build trust, be the face of the business while he handled the complicated parts. More damning emails entered evidence. Dad's own words describing how my youth and likability would put clients at ease, how I'd be perfect for smoothing over concerns. By the time the prosecutor finished, the picture was clear. Dad hadn't wanted a daughter in his business. He'd wanted a patsy. Then came cross-examination. Dad's attorney was a sharp woman named Catherine Reed. She approached with a sympathetic smile. Miss Fletcher, you and your father became estranged 5 years ago, correct? Yes. And that estrangement was painful for you? Yes. In fact, you felt abandoned by him, rejected. I felt like I'd disappointed him. Later, I learned the real reason for the estrangement. But for 5 years, you believed he'd rejected you simply because you chose a different career path. Yes, that must have made you angry. I saw where she was going. It made me sad, confused, but I moved on. Did you? Because it seems like the moment you learned about your father's legal troubles, you immediately turned that sadness into something else. Vindictiveness. No. You kicked him out of your wedding in front of hundreds of people. You refused all contact with your mother. You're here today testifying against your own father. That sounds vindictive to me. It sounds like setting boundaries to me. Convenient boundaries. Refusing to support your father right when he needs you most. Wesley stood. Objection. Argumentative. Sustained. But Reed continued. You claim your father wanted to implicate you in his crimes. But isn't it true that he paid for your education? Gave you a car? Supported you until you chose to leave? Yes. Doesn't sound like someone trying to hurt you. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He was trying to use me. Or he was a father wanting his daughter in the family business. Many parents want that. Is that criminal? When the business is criminal, yes. Light laughter from the gallery. The judge frowned. Reed continued trying to paint me as bitter and revenge-seeking. But the emails were clear. The timeline was clear. And I stayed calm, answered honestly, didn't take the bait. After 2 hours, she gave up. I was dismissed. As I walked back to the gallery, I passed Dad. For one moment, our eyes met. I saw everything there. Anger, shame, fear, something that might have been regret. I looked away and kept walking. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Victim after victim testified. Forensic accountants explained the schemes. FBI agents detailed the investigation. The evidence was overwhelming. The defense tried. They called character witnesses who described Dad as a pillar of the community. They brought in medical experts to talk about how the stress of the investigation caused his stroke. They suggested he'd made mistakes, but not crimes. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Dad's face crumpled when the verdict was read. Mom sobbed. My brother just stared straight ahead. Sentencing was scheduled for a month later. Outside the courthouse, Geneva Ortiz found me. Thank you, she said simply. I just told the truth. Sometimes that's enough. She walked away before I could respond, straight-backed and proud despite everything she'd lost. The sentencing hearing was less crowded. Most of the media had moved on to other stories, but the victims were there. One by one, they gave impact statements. Bradley Chen described losing the restaurant his family had run for 40 years. A single mother explained how Dad's theft had forced her to give up custody of her kids because she couldn't afford to house them. An elderly man talked about working as a Walmart greeter at 82. Each statement was a knife. Each one a reminder that Dad hadn't just stolen money. He'd stolen futures, dreams, stability, dignity. When it was the prosecution's turn to recommend a sentence, they asked for the maximum, 20 years. The defense asked for leniency, pointed to Dad's age, his health, his lack of criminal history before this. The judge listened to everything. Then she spoke. Mr. Fletcher, you violated the trust of dozens of people over 2 decades. You stole not just their money, but their sense of security. You used your expertise and their faith in you as weapons against them. You showed no remorse until you were caught. And even then, your primary concern seemed to be protecting yourself, even at the expense of your own daughter. The law allows me to show mercy, but I see no reason why you should receive what you never gave your victims. 18 years in federal prison. You will also be required to pay restitution in the full amount stolen, plus interest. Dad made a sound like he'd been punched. Mom collapsed into sobs. 18 years. He'd be 76 when he got out, if he lived that long. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sadness, just emptiness. Outside, reporters asked if I had a statement. Justice was served today, I said. Not just for me, but for every person my father stole from. I hope they can find some peace now. It was over. Finally, it was over. Except it wasn't. The aftermath dragged on for months. asset forfeiture proceedings, civil lawsuits from victims, media analyses of the case, true crime podcasts dissecting my father's psychology. I changed my name legally, took Theo's surname completely, stopped checking news alerts, focused on rebuilding a life separate from all of it. Mom eventually reached out through my brother, wanted to know if we could talk, if I could forgive her. I thought about Geneva Ortiz saying she didn't want forgiveness, about Bradley Chen who'd lost his life's work, about all the people who couldn't rebuild because they were too old, too poor, too broken by what Dad had done. I wrote Mom a letter, the only one I'd send. What Dad did was his choice, but you enabled it. You knew and said nothing. You benefited from stolen money and pretended not to see where it came from. You stood beside him at my wedding and tried to stop me from learning the truth. I don't forgive you. I'm not even sure I should. Maybe someday I'll feel differently. But right now, I need you to understand that you don't get absolution just because you want it. You made choices. Live with them. I'm building a life that has nothing to do with either of you. I wish you well, but I wish it from a distance. I mailed it and never looked back. A year after the trial, Theo and I took our belated honeymoon. We went to Iceland, as far from everything as we could get, watched the northern lights, hiked through volcanic landscapes, sat in hot springs, and talked about the future. Do you ever think about having kids? Theo asked one night. Sometimes. But I'm terrified I'll mess them up the way I was messed up. You're not your father. No. But what if some part of him is in me? What if— Stop. You are the person who walked away from easy money to build something real, who stood up in court and told the truth even though it was hard, who cataloged victims to honor them when no one asked you to. That's who you are. Is that enough? It's everything. We flew home and started planning for a future that was ours alone. I got promoted again. Theo started his own consulting firm. We bought a small house with a yard for Justice the cat to pretend to hunt in. Life moved forward. Sometimes I'd think about Dad in prison. Wonder if he'd learned anything. If he felt remorse. If he ever thought about the people he'd hurt. Probably not. People like him rarely did. My brother and I talked occasionally. He'd moved across the country, changed careers, was dating someone who made him happy. He was building his own life separate from the wreckage too. Do you ever feel guilty? He asked during one call. For moving on while they're still dealing with consequences? No, they made their choices. We made ours. I guess you're right. I know I am. 2 years after the trial, I got a letter from Geneva Ortiz. She'd gotten a part-time job at a community college teaching baking classes. Not retirement, but better than retail. I wanted you to know I'm okay, she wrote. Not great, but okay. Thank you for your testimony. It helped. I kept the letter in my desk drawer. Some days I'd take it out and reread it. A reminder that truth mattered, that speaking up had consequences beyond myself. 3 years later, I ran into someone from high school at a conference. She'd followed the trial in the news. I always wondered, she said. Are you okay? After everything with your dad? Yeah, I said. I am. How did you get past it? I thought about that. I decided his choices weren't mine to carry. I'm responsible for my own actions, not his. And my actions are building something real, something honest, something I'm proud of. That's really healthy. It's survival, but it works. She nodded. For what it's worth, I always thought you were the bravest person in our class. Even back then. This just proves it. After she left, I sat in the hotel bar and thought about bravery. I didn't feel brave. I just felt like someone who'd done what needed to be done. Maybe that was enough. That night, I called Theo. Remember when you asked if I wanted kids? Yeah? I think I do. I think I want to show them what it looks like to build something honest. To make hard choices, to stand up even when it costs you. Okay, he said. Then let's do it. 6 months later, I took a pregnancy test. Positive. We sat on the bathroom floor, holding each other, crying happy tears mixed with terrified ones. We're going to mess this up sometimes, I said. Probably. But we'll do it honestly. We'll admit our mistakes. We'll never try to use them. Deal. Our daughter was born 9 months later. We named her Hope. It felt appropriate. I never told her about my father. When she was old enough to ask about grandparents, I said my parents weren't in our lives. Simple truth. If she wanted more details when she was older, I'd give them to her. But I wouldn't burden a child with that darkness. She deserved to grow up believing people were generally good. She'd learn about complexity and betrayal and hard truths soon enough. For now, she could be innocent. 5 years after the trial, my brother called with news. Dad had died in prison. Heart attack. Quick and relatively painless. Do you want to go to the funeral? He asked. Is there one? Mom's planning something small. I'll pass. Yeah, me too. We stayed on the phone in silence for a while, both processing the same complicated grief. Not for the man who'd died, but for the father we'd never really had. Do you think he ever regretted it? My brother finally asked. Regretted getting caught? Probably. Regretted what he did? I don't know. I wish I'd had a different dad. Me too. After we hung up, I sat with the news for a long time, tried to find some feeling about it. Sadness, relief, closure. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired of thinking about him. Tired of the weight of his choices affecting mine. So I decided to stop. I'd told the truth. I'd honored the victims. I'd built a good life despite him, not because of him. That was enough. I went to the living room where Theo was reading Hope a story, curled up beside them and listened to his voice, her giggles, the ordinary sound of a family built on honesty. This was what I'd chosen instead of Dad's firm. This was what I'd gained by losing everything, and it was worth it. Every part of it was worth it. 10 years after I walked out of my wedding reception, I stood in the same venue, this time for a different reason. I'd been contacted by a journalist writing a book about financial crimes. She wanted to interview me about Dad's case, about being the daughter who testified. I'd agreed, but only on one condition. She had to meet me here, in the place where it had all come crashing down. She arrived right on time. A woman named Patricia with intelligent eyes and a recorder. Why here? She asked as we sat in the same coat check room where the truth had been revealed. Because this is where I learned who my father really was. This is where my family ended and my real life began. Do you regret testifying? No, not even a little. He was your father. He was a criminal who tried to use me. Being related doesn't change that. Patricia made notes. Your story is unusual. Most family members either enable or distance themselves quietly. You actively participated in his prosecution. Someone had to speak for the victims. Did it help them? Your testimony? I thought about Geneva Ortiz teaching baking classes, about Bradley Chen who'd never gotten his restaurant back, about all the people whose futures were permanently altered. I don't know if it helped, but it was necessary. They deserve to have someone acknowledge what was done to them. What would you say to other people dealing with family members who've done terrible things? I considered the question carefully. That you don't owe loyalty to people who violated trust. That blood doesn't obligate you to cover up crimes or minimize harm. And that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable. Even if it costs you everything. I didn't lose everything. I lost a father who was never really a father. I kept my integrity. That trade was worth it. Patricia turned off her recorder. For what it's worth, I think you're incredibly brave. I'm just someone who told the truth when it mattered. That's what bravery is. After she left, I stood in the empty venue, remembered myself at 27, terrified in a wedding dress, learning my father had tried to destroy my future. I wondered what I'd tell that version of myself if I could. Probably that it would be okay, that the pain would fade, that she'd build something beautiful from the ashes. My phone buzzed. Theo sending a picture of Hope helping him make dinner, both of them covered in flour, laughing. This was my life now. Simple, honest, built on choices I was proud of. I'd sent Dad a wedding invitation to show him what I'd built without his help. Instead, I'd discovered what he'd been hiding, and in a strange way, that was a better wedding gift than anything he could have given me. The truth had set me free.